Thank you and bom dia. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be back on stage. As Wanda said this morning, let's take advantage of the fact that we're here together. Let's interact. Please ask me questions, interrupt me at any point while I'm presenting. Because quite honestly, technology is great, but having all of those conference calls, it gets boring at some point. But technology is definitely important to deal with a world where we all know we have to face a lot of volatility from a business model standpoint, from a working model and operating model standpoint, from the political volatility that we're unfortunately all experiencing and organizations have to deal with. And our research tells us that the only way to cope with such a fluid environment is to truly rethink the framework through which enterprises and public sector develop, deliver, operate services, products through 5 pillars of purpose, resilience, imagination, mastery, and ecosystem. And purpose meaning that the goals and the objectives and the outcomes that organizations want to achieve are becoming broader. They have to do with well-being of employees, with engagement with customers, with sustainability targets, while at the same time being resilient to the disruption, building some redundancy. I was talking to some manufacturer as part of our Future of Operation Advisory Board, and they were discussing how lean became too lean. And that lean approach to supply chain, to manufacturing, and even to IT was a little bit too much and was not giving the agility to respond to the changes. Imagination is about thinking how to do things differently. And I'm a public sector expert. I've been for 20 years, besides having dealt with technology, but technology in public sector is one of my specialty areas. And I was talking to the tax agency in the UK, and instead of sending you a bill as a taxpayer, what they do now, they have created an API that interacts with open banking applications. They have reimagined the paradigm of collecting revenues from the taxpayers. Mastery, it's about building capacity, and all of the speakers before me, particularly Wanda, but also in the previous panel, they talk about building capacity, nurturing resources. And finally, opening the chest to the ecosystem. There's not one single organization that can deal with the complexity that the world outside presents to us. And I know you may be wondering, what the hell does all of this have to do with cloud, right? And the point is that cloud can contribute to all of those pillars, to purpose, to resiliency, to imagination, to mastery, and to ecosystem, both from a business and operational perspective and an IT perspective. It can add value. I was having a chat with other colleagues yesterday with the CIO of Athens Airport. And we were asking about sustainability, and he said, yes, my CEO at Athens Airport has set these grandiose goals for sustainability, energy efficiency, net zero targets for the airport. But in my IT operations, I have more mundane KPIs that I need to worry about, like delivering on the SLAs, dealing with the fact that the airport has seen the revenues decline significantly in the past 2 years and having to reprioritize a lot of programs. And cloud is one way of helping deliver on some of those targets, starting with procuring cloud services that help with better power usage efficiency, and making a contribution to the IT bottom line at the same time. In terms of resilience, of course, not having a single point of failure. In terms of imagination, again, as part of one of these conversations that we have with innovators around Europe, I had a chat with the Chief Digital Officer for Volvo, and he's involved in a lot of autonomous driving, particularly autonomous truck projects. And it was telling us a story of how only 10, 15 years ago, when they were developing a new truck, they were doing like 3,000 tests per each product. Now, because a lot of technology, a lot of IT goes into building a truck, they run millions of tests every week to make sure that the trucks that they bring to market are reliable, safe, and so forth and so on. And again, dealing with that level of imagination, empowering the business to think of new products, develop those new products quickly, is one of the capabilities that cloud can deliver. And if we look at our survey results, we see that the ability to generate new revenue models, new services, and new products is one of the key KPIs that CIOs around Europe are tracking in terms of cloud deployment. Faster and more easy access to innovative features, as well as, of course, improving the productivity of IT. So back to the conversation of the Athens airport CIO keeping an eye on the more mundane day-by-day KPIs that every chief executive has to worry about. To achieve all of that, and we get to the point of the conversation of this session, to achieve all of that, a lot of both enterprises in the private sector and public sector entities are working in heterogeneous environments, right? It's hybrid cloud, it's multi-cloud. In some cases, they're making, or you're making, a conscious decision to have a multi-cloud strategy. In many cases, I would suspect, at least the people that we talk to, organically grow into a multi-cloud environment. And organically growing into a multi-cloud environment immediately raises the need for better orchestration, better automation. Otherwise, those benefits that we talked about in the previous slide are not realized. And those are precisely the things why having a layer of capabilities on top of infrastructure as a service from AWS, some private cloud environments, some on-premise legacy, why a platform approach to manage those multi-cloud environments is important. To deploy workloads more flexibly, to provide or bring together trust with agility, as well as, of course, reduce the risk of technical and commercial lock-in. And I'll give you a practical example. Again, I mentioned public sector is one of the areas that I look at more carefully in my research. I was talking to Logius. Logius, for lack of a better description, is the equivalent of the AMA, the Central Agency for Public Sector Modernization. They're primarily focused on developing capabilities as well as running some of the shared services like the National Digital Identity System. And Logius, like many other European governments, have to deal with multi-cloud platforms or want to help all the other government entities do a better job at dealing with those multi-cloud environments. So what they're doing, they created a product group internally, literally, a public administration that talks about product management, product ownership, product development, business development, where they are using mostly open source components to create this orchestration layer and then make it available for the other public entities in the central government in the Netherlands to do a better job at achieving those results. And in the conversations that we've had, they've clearly explained to me that the tools and the technology are part of the equation, but a lot of the gaps that they still have are, of course, in terms of skills, as well as in terms of the ability to make these new capabilities, this new orchestration and automation layer for the cloud, truly available and consumable in an easy manner to large entity like the Ministry of Defense versus smaller agencies that may be dealing with, I don't know, grants for small and medium companies in the country. And the challenges that they're dealing with have to do with the fact that there are, of course, concerns around regulatory compliance, but most importantly, very heterogeneous legacy environments that these entities have to migrate to, and that's true both across public and private sector. Insufficient capability to automate both the configuration, the deployment, and the operations of the service, and with the fact, as I mentioned earlier, that they have to nurture a certain set of skills around security, around data privacy, but probably most importantly around cloud-native application development. And it's not just about the developer of a teeny tiny application, it's about the system engineering skills, the enterprise architecture skills that are able to see the broad picture of the entire enterprise architecture of an organization and are able to strategize the roadmap or the path, as many said before me on stage this morning, the journey towards cloud and cloud automation and cloud orchestration. So if I had to summarize in a way, there's definitely value that cloud can add to the entire transformation of enterprises and public sector as well. It's all about thinking how cloud can contribute and align to the purpose, the resilience, the imagination or innovation, the mastery and the ability to work with the ecosystem within your organization. And then it's about taking practical steps, right? Being demanding in a way to your technology partner, your technology suppliers, and there are many of you in the room today that have capabilities, but as a CIO, as a CDO, as a chief change officer, you want to make sure that the technology suppliers that you work with provide multiple options, address your concerns around governance and security and privacy, provide multiple deployment options, and increasingly offer interoperable systems that are easy to use. And then internally, the skills piece is extremely important. And it's not just about training people, it's about creating centers of excellence, about creating a career development opportunity for people that have done things differently, that have had a different mindset before using the cloud or before being confronted with a heterogeneous cloud environment, and making them the champions, the people capable of driving towards that journey of orchestration and automation to deliver the value of cloud computing. So that's what I had in mind. Hopefully I'll have provided you some food for thoughts and set the stage for the rest of the conversation.